This happened a few months ago. I had just moved to a small town to find some peace. I'm a freelance journalist, and I've always been drawn to urban legends. I thought I'd uncover some good stories for my next article. That's when I rented an old house in the historical district. It was worn down, but it felt mysterious. While unpacking, I heard soft knocking from the walls. I brushed it off at first. I thought it was just the house settling. But as the days passed, the knocks became louder. They interrupted my writing and sent shivers down my spine. I wondered if I had made a mistake moving in. Curiosity drove me to the attic one evening. That's where I found a pile of old letters. They were hidden in a dusty corner. I opened one, and my heart sank. The letters spoke of shadows and whispers in the night. The old residents talked about people living behind the walls. I felt a chill as I read them. That night, while lying in bed, I heard whispers. They floated through the walls, soft and eerie. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping they would go away. But they got louder. My heart raced. The whispers sounded so close. I could feel fear creeping over me. I got out of bed, drawn to the sound. I crept toward the wall, where flickering shadows danced in the hallway. I held my breath. Something felt wrong. I wanted to run, but I needed answers. Then came a soft knock. "Emily?" The voice was faint but clear. I froze. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming. I glanced around my empty room. The air felt colder. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. I opened the attic door. I wanted to see if anyone was there. I stepped into the dim light. I felt like I was being watched. I walked slowly, my footsteps breaking the silence. It was dark and quiet. I could hear my heart pounding. As I peered around the attic, I saw old furniture covered in white sheets. Everything felt heavy. Then I heard it again. The whisper. "Emily, please let us out." I stumbled back. I wasn't alone. I wanted to run, but fear kept me in place. My mind raced with questions. Who were they? Were they stuck? I felt trapped inside my own home. I needed to know more. I turned to leave, but the door creaked shut behind me. I pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Help!" I shouted. Panic surged through me. Then the voices whispered louder. "You found us. You have to help." I pressed my ear against the door. It felt like the wall was breathing. I could sense life behind it, and it terrified me. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen in fear. Then silence fell. I stepped back, heart racing. I could hear nothing but my own breaths. I slumped against the wall, feeling nauseous. I wanted to leave, but the urge to stay pulled at me. I stood there in the dark, thinking about the letters and the words still echoing in my head. I wanted to uncover the truth, but I didn't know if I was ready for whatever was hiding in the walls. I spent another night in that attic, the darkness wrapping around me like a thick fog. I barely slept, thoughts swirling in my mind. Who were they? What did they want from me? The whispers haunted me, echoing in my ears like a melody I couldn't shake. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. I needed to learn more about the house and its history. I grabbed my laptop and headed to the local library. As I walked, the town felt strangely alive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. When I reached the library, I browsed through old newspapers and property records. I found an article from the 1950s about strange occurrences in the neighborhood. Families reported odd noises, just like what I had experienced. Some even claimed they saw figures moving behind the walls. A shiver ran through me. It was more than just stories, people had experienced similar things. Then I stumbled upon a photograph. It showed the old residents of my house, a couple with 2 children. They seemed happy, but the caption sent chills down my spine: mysterious disappearance, the Johnson family vanishes without a trace. I couldn't believe it. The family was linked to my home. I wanted to know what happened to them. More questions flooded my mind. Did they hide? Were they taken? The thought of something evil lurking drove me back home. I needed to confront whatever I was facing. I returned to my house with a heavy heart. As I entered through the front door, a feeling washed over me. The air felt charged, alive. I made my way back to the attic, determined this time. But as I climbed the stairs, the whispers grew louder, almost frantic. "Emily, please help us." My heart felt like it was in my throat. I reached the top and found the door half open. I stepped inside, and my blood ran cold. There was something new, a glimmer in the corner. I approached it cautiously. That's when I saw it. A small, rusted key lay on the ground, partially hidden behind an old trunk. I picked it up, feeling its weight. It seemed important, as if it belonged to something concealed. Just then, I heard something crash downstairs. My heart raced as I glanced toward the attic door. Was I alone? "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Nothing answered. The house felt heavier, the shadows darker. I clutched the key tightly. I could either leave now, or I could face whatever was in my home. Taking a deep breath, I decided to explore. As I turned to leave the attic, the whispers swelled again. "Emily, you have to trust us, it's not safe." My pulse quickened, but I felt an urgency pushing me forward. I had to know what lay behind those walls, and I now had a key. But to what? I took one last look around the attic before making my way down the stairs, the whispers trailing behind me like a dark shadow. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered out, leaving me in utter silence. I felt the weight of something sinister gathering around me. I stood in the darkness, heart racing, every sound amplified. The whispers faded but left behind a sense of dread. I reached for my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating the attic's wooden beams and dusty corners. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt electric. The rusted key in my hand seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I needed to make a decision. The house was quiet, eerily so, but I could feel a presence. What had caused the crash? Swallowing hard, I crept down the stairs, the light flickering ominously. Each step sounded like thunder in the hushed space. When I reached the bottom, I hesitated. The house loomed around me, shadows stretching in unexpected ways. I glanced back at the attic door, half tempted to retreat. But curiosity clawed at me. What was behind those walls? I cast the light around the living room and caught sight of something, a small door tucked behind an old bookshelf. My breath caught in my throat. I had never noticed it before. Something told me this door might lead to answers. I approached it, every step echoing in the stillness. As I knelt down, I inspected the doorknob. It was an odd shape, unlike any I had seen. It looked like a place for my key. I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Should I use it? What if what lay beyond was worse than the whispers? A sudden crash came from the kitchen, jolting me from my thoughts. My heart raced again, pounding against my ribs. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer. Just the eerie silence of the house. I stood up, my instinct screaming at me to leave. But I brushed aside that impulse. I was already in too deep. I turned back to the strange door, my flashlight illuminating the keyhole. I inserted the key, hands trembling. It clicked open. With a deep breath, I pulled the door. It creaked on rusty hinges, revealing a dark passage that led forward. My stomach dropped. This was no ordinary door, it felt like a threshold to something hidden, a secret lurking just out of sight. I peered into the darkness. The passage seemed to go on for what felt like forever. I could hear soft, muffled whispers echoing, but they were different now, clearer, more urgent. "Emily, please, who are you?" I shouted into the void, my voice trembling. Silence. Then I heard a shuffling noise coming from further down the passage. Panic welled inside me. Should I stay or go? My instincts shouted to run, but the whispers drew me closer. It felt like a pull I couldn't resist. With the flashlight steady in one hand, I took a cautious step forward into the unknown. My heart raced, my breath quickening as the whispers grew louder. I could see a faint light ahead, flickering like a candle. What lay in wait? I took another step, determined. I had to know the truth about this house and the people who came before me. But as I moved, the door behind me slammed shut. The sound echoed in the darkness, sealing my fate. The air shifted as I stepped into the passage. The faint light beckoned me forward, the whispers morphing into an almost desperate chorus. I clutched the flashlight, its beam barely cutting through the suffocating darkness. The soft glow started to take shape, revealing worn stone walls and remnants of old furniture shoved to the sides. I moved cautiously, nerves on high alert. Each sound was exaggerated, the echo of my footsteps, the distant creaking of the house, and the whispers that seemed to swirl around me like specters. "Emily, don't leave," one voice pleaded. It sounded familiar, yet I couldn't place it. The intensity of the whispers made my skin crawl, pushing me further along. Ahead, I saw the light flicker violently and then stabilize. It was coming from an old lantern, perched precariously on a single crate. My curiosity piqued, I picked up my pace, but a sudden chill ran down my spine. What if this was a trap? I reached the lantern and noticed something etched into the wall beside it. My breath quickened as I traced the jagged carvings with my fingers. Names. They were names, many of them scratched hastily, some barely legible. Each one was dated. Tommy, 1995, Lisa, 2002, and so on. The most recent was David, 2018. My heart sank. Who were these people? Were they all trapped here, like I was? "Help us, Emily." The whispers pleaded again, urgency creeping back into their tone. The echo of the names filled my mind like a fog. I felt a wave of despair washing over me. What had happened to them? And why were they calling my name? In that moment, I made a decision. I had to find out more. I set the lantern down and continued deeper into the passage. I could hear the air shift again, a faint rustling ahead, growing louder with each step. It felt like something or someone shifted in the darkness beyond the feeble light. Then came a sound, quick, shuffling footsteps. A shadow flitted against the wall. My instincts kicked in, and I spun around, just as the breath caught in my throat again. The door I had entered through had vanished. Panic surged through me. I was trapped. "Emily," a soft voice called out, and I froze. My flashlight flickered, illuminating a figure lingering in the darkness, eyes reflecting the faint light like shards of glass. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, fear coursing through my veins. But before I could get an answer, the lantern flickered once more, and everything went dark. The whispers faded, replaced with an overwhelming silence that felt like a weight pressing down on me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. I was not alone. The presence was here with me, lurking just beyond the limits of the light. An idea sparked in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, the answers lay in the names on the wall. But would I be strong enough to uncover the truth, or would I become just another name etched in this hidden graveyard of souls? I stumbled in the dark, the silence wrapping around me like a cold blanket. I desperately aimed my flashlight into the void, but the darkness swallowed the beam. My heart raced, urging me to move, to find another way. Instinct kicked in, and I hugged the wall, feeling its rough surface beneath my fingertips. Emily? The voice wasn't just calling me, it was closer now. A cold sweat dampened my brow. Who's there? I managed to rasp out, barely containing the tremor in my voice. Don't be afraid, the voice replied softly, almost soothingly. We're all here waiting. Just then, a faint glimmer caught my eye. A narrow crack appeared in the wall beside me, revealing a thin sliver of light. I pressed my ear against it, straining to hear, but it was just whispers, a mix of familiar voices. I pulled back, frustration clawing at my insides. Can you hear them? The figure in the darkness asked. I'd almost forgotten about it. My eyes adjusted slightly, revealing the outline of a slender, shadowed form. Who are you? I repeated, my voice edged with impatience. I'm someone who knows what lies ahead, came the cryptic reply. My heart raced, it was the same voice that called my name. You must understand the names, they hold the key. The key to what? I pressed, feeling a strange connection to this stranger. To freedom or to your doom? The choice will become clear soon. As the silence fell thick again, I noticed the crack widening. The light spilled through, illuminating a series of symbols etched along the floor. They seemed to pulse with energy as I moved closer, revealing an intricate design resembling a spiral, the same one carved near the names. Fear mixed with curiosity. Was this a way out, or was I stepping into a trap? I didn't have time to think. My curiosity outweighed my fear, and I knelt beside the markings, heart pounding as I began to trace them with my fingertips. The moment I connected with the design, the shadows around me flickered. Emily, you must hurry, the figure urged, stepping into the dim light. I could see its features now, pale skin and hollow eyes. I almost gasped. It looked like a gaunt version of someone I knew, someone I thought I lost. And then it hit me, the stranger one moment, familiar the next. Could it be? Are you? No time for that, the figure interrupted, urgency lacing its tone. They're coming. You need to make a decision. A low rumble echoed through the passage, causing dust to rain from the ceiling. I could feel the vibrating energy in the air. My heart raced. The whispers intensified, chanting in a rhythm I couldn't quite grasp. Then I felt something shift beneath me. The ground started to tremble, and the symbols flared to life, glowing fiercely. In that moment, I saw the outlines of faces emerge from the shadows, their mouths moving as if they were crying out for help. Panic surged through me. I couldn't be just another name carved into the wall. I'm not going to end up like you. I yelled, backing away from the light, but I was already trapped in their desperate gaze. That's when everything collapsed. The walls shook, and the darkness erupted, pulling me down into its depths. I grasped for anything solid, but the ground seemed to give way. Then, out of the chaos, the voice called my name again, steady yet distant. I felt myself being pulled in both directions, towards the light, towards the whispers. Choices. A choice between salvation and despair lay ahead. And just as everything went black, I realized it wasn't the answer I was seeking that mattered most, but the choice I was about to make. I woke up on the ground, disoriented. The air was dense, thick with dust. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes. All around me was darkness, but fragments of light filtered through small openings above. I was still trapped, but I couldn't tell where I was anymore. Pushing myself up, I scanned my surroundings. The walls were rough and damp, and I could hear the faint sounds of water dripping from somewhere. I felt a shiver travel down my spine. I wasn't alone in here. The whispering echoed again, now mingled with a cacophony of distant cries. Emily, the voice drew closer, familiar yet haunting. I squinted into the dark. Can you see me? Where are you? I called out, my voice hoarse. There was no reply, just silence thick as fog. I crawled forward, desperately hoping to find that crack again. The symbols from before beckoned me, their light flickering dimly. As I approached, the walls seemed to pulse. The symbols resonated with a strange energy, filling the air with a low hum that vibrated in my chest. Touch them, the voice urged. It's the only way to remember. A sense of urgency washed over me. I reached out, fingertips brushing against the slick, warm surface of a symbol. A rush of images flooded my mind, faces I didn't recognize, fragmented memories of laughter, fear, and loss. They spun in a whirlwind, and I fell back, gasping. What was that? I panted, my heart racing. They were like you, the voice replied. Trapped, seeking answers. They became part of the walls. Glimmers of dread pooled in my stomach. No. I'm not going to end up like them. There's a choice, remember? Make it, or lose yourself to the shadows. I fought off the creeping panic. The whispers grew louder, circling me with every breath. They echoed the names I'd seen etched in the spirals. I felt compelled to choose somewhere deep down. I understood that each name represented a path. A path that might lead to solving this nightmare, or worse, sealing my fate. Suddenly, the ground shook again, and I felt the tremors deepen. The walls around me shifted, causing chunks of dirt and stone to fall. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline surging through me. It was as if something was trying to push me out. Then, out of the shadows, a twisted figure emerged, an unfocused silhouette with familiar features. My heart dropped. A flicker of recognition sparked. Is it really you? But as I stepped closer, the shadow morphed into a menacing form. The hollow eyes mirrored my fears as it reached out, claw-like fingers ready to intercept. I backed away, but it let out a sound, a desperate cry that echoed my name. Don't trust it. I yelled, shaking my head. The figure disintegrated into dark smoke, leaving only whispers that turned into chilling laughter. That's when I saw it, a glimmering object half buried in the dirt at my feet. A key? My instincts kicked in. I had to grasp it, even if it proved dangerous. I lunged forward, fingers brushing against cold metal. Emily, take it. The voice urged, urgency breaking through the chaos. Clenching the key in my fist, I felt a jolt of energy surge through me. My choice was made. But what door would it open? I turned back, ready to face whatever havoc the darkness would unleash. The moment I gripped the key, the air around me shifted. The whispers quieted, replaced by a heavy stillness that filled the void. I could still feel the remnants of darkness lingering. It was as if the key had flipped a switch, but I couldn't shake the unease that settled over me. I took a deep breath and looked around. The walls seemed to pulse with a different energy now, almost beckoning me to move closer, to explore the symbols that danced faintly in the shadows. There had to be a door nearby, something I could unlock. I advanced cautiously, eyes darting for any hint of what might lie ahead. The surface of the symbols shimmered subtly, and the temperature dropped as I reached another glowing pattern. I pressed my hand against it again, letting the warmth of the key seep through my palm. It felt alive. Suddenly, I heard it, a distant echo, like footsteps. Fear gripped my throat. I froze, straining to listen. The footsteps approached slowly, then suddenly stopped. I stepped back, the key clenching tightly in my fist. Whatever it was closer than I'd like. The walls around me trembled, more rocks showering down. I had to act fast. I scanned for a possible exit or any hint of where the sound had come from. To my left, I noticed a faint outline, a crack in the stone that looked softer than the rest of the wall. I rushed toward it, praying it would lead me out. My heart raced as I pressed my palm against the crack. The symbols around me flickered, and the whispering returned, this time urgent. Find the opening. You can't let them catch you. I braced myself against the wall, pushing harder. It felt warm, almost inviting, and then with a sudden rush of force, the crack widened. Dust clouded the air as I squeezed through, emerging into a narrow tunnel. I turned my head, glancing back just as a shadow darted past the original chamber I had just left. Panic surged inside me, and I hurried forward without thinking. The tunnel was dark and damp, but at least it felt like I was moving away from whatever that thing was. The air smelled stale, filled with the scent of mold and something iron-like. I stumbled over uneven ground, heart pounding in rhythm with my footsteps. Each turn of the tunnel seemed to echo back to me, mocking my haste. Was I running deeper into a trap? And then, just ahead, I spotted a weak light filtering through another opening. My body tensed with hope and fear. What if it was more darkness waiting to swallow me whole? Yet as I pushed closer, I saw something glimmering in the light, a door. My breath hitched. It looked ancient and worn, but the kind of antique beauty that promised secrets. Without thinking, I approached, hands trembling as I raised the key toward the lock. I had to find out what lay beyond this door. But then, I heard it again, the footsteps, echoing down the tunnel, drawing nearer. "Emily!" The familiar voice called out, urgency lacing each syllable. "Open it now." I turned the key, adrenaline spiking again as the mechanism clicked. The door creaked open, and before I could step through, the figure emerged from the shadows. This time, it wore a face I recognized, a twisted version of my own expression. "Get in," it hissed. I hesitated, heart racing as I glanced between the figure and the darkening tunnel behind me. The choice was clear, but the fear of the unknown gripped me. What could be waiting on the other side? I stepped into the light, driven by a mix of fear and desperation. The figure that mirrored my face stood just behind me, pushing me forward. I stumbled into the room, and the door swung shut with a heavy thud, sealing us off from the darkness that chased us. This new space was expansive, filled with strange relics. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with odd trinkets and dusty books. The air felt different here, charged and thick, like the calm before a storm. I turned around, still reeling from my reflection. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to mask my confusion with bravado. The figure narrowed its eyes. "You know who I am. I'm the part of you that you don't want to face." Its voice was a low growl, a twisted echo of my own. Panic washed over me as I took a step back, surveying the room for a potential escape. The space was unsettling. Dim lanterns flickered overhead, revealing glimpses of more symbols etched across the walls, much like those I had seen before. They pulsated with a dull glow, creating shadows that danced eerily around us. I could feel the weight of them pressing down on my chest. "Why did you bring me here?" I stammered, gripping the key tightly in my fist as if it were my last hope. "What's south this place?" The figure tilted its head, a mocking smile creeping onto its lips. "This is where hidden truths lie. You don't know what's behind the facade you've created. We can unlock those secrets together." My mind raced. "Unlock what?" I barely managed to whisper. Just then, a low rumble reverberated through the room. Was it the remnants of my panic, or something more? The ground shook, making the lanterns sway. "Something is coming," I heard the figure say, its confidence draining as it stepped back. "We may not have much time." I remembered the footsteps, the urgency of the voice calling me. What was coming? I looked toward a wall adorned with symbols and felt drawn to one in particular, a spiraling pattern at its center. It glowed brighter with each heartbeat, calling me forward. Before I could think, I reached my hand out, letting the warmth of the key pulse in rhythm with the energy of the symbols. As my fingers brushed against the etched markings, I felt a jolt. Images flashed in my mind, scenes of faces I didn't recognize, but they all felt familiar. Were they memories of people trapped here, forgotten and lost? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside the door, followed by frantic banging. "Emily!" I heard the voice again, filled with rising panic. "You have to focus. Don't let it take you. Don't let what take me." I shouted, feeling the walls close in around me. The figure in front of me began to flicker, fading in and out like a dying flame. I realized then that if I was going to survive, I needed to make a choice. The door rattled violently as whatever haunted these spaces drew closer. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. I need to figure this out. I refuse to be lost like them. But as I stepped toward the spiraling symbol, everything went dark, a chilling silence engulfing me completely. I awoke, gasping for air. The darkness pressed against me like a heavy blanket, but I could feel a soft warmth near my hand. I instinctively reached out, my fingers brushing against a cold, smooth surface. It felt familiar yet entirely foreign. As I pushed myself up, light surged into the space. The world around me sharpened into focus. I found myself sitting in front of a massive mirror. My reflection stared back, but it looked different, hollow and haunted. My heart raced as memories flooded back, fragments of voices and images swirling in my mind. Where am I? I whispered to my reflection, clutching the key tight enough that it started to bite into my skin. Welcome back, the figure said, now appearing beside the mirror, its outline flickering as though it were struggling to maintain form. You've passed through the barrier. What barrier? I shot back, feeling unnerved by the sight of it so close. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. You need to accept the truth, Emily. There are things you can't run from. My breath quickened as I glanced back at the mirror. An unsettling realization seeped into my bones. This mirror, it's not just a reflection, is it? I turned to the figure. You're using it to trap me, aren't you? A twisted smile crept across its face. It's not about trapping you. It's about revealing what you fear. That's where your strength lies, the truth hidden behind layers of fear. Why would I ever trust you? I took a step back, but my foot hit something solid. I turned to see what it was, a small, wooden box etched with the same symbols that danced across the walls. Opening it, I discovered several dusty journals. The pages were filled with frantic handwriting, detailing experiences of others who had wandered into similar rooms. Each entry spoke of lost memories and voices that taunted them further into the depths of their own minds. Look closely, the figure intoned, a strange intensity in its voice. These could be your keys to freedom. Each one holds a connection to the past. I flipped through the pages, and something felt off. These people weren't just lost, they were desperate. It dawned on me that they were warning signs. A realization flooded through me. I don't want to forget who I am. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me, making my heart leap. The door, the banging again, frantic and violent. Emily! You have to fight. The voice shouted from somewhere far away, but it cut through the dark fog surrounding me. Who is that? I shouted. I looked back at the figure, but it had begun to fade again. What's happening? There's no time. It hissed, tension tightening around us. You can either confront the truth or be consumed by it. My fear bubbled over, choking my words. I raised the key and directed it towards the mirror. No. I won't lose myself. The reflection in the glass shimmered and warped as if it were alive. And then I saw it, something stirring behind my reflection. Something that didn't belong. I gasped, feeling the walls of my mind closing in again, but I couldn't turn away. I needed to confront whatever it was. This was my last chance. Just then, everything surged, the pressure piercing through me as the mirror shattered into pieces, revealing a dark, swirling void behind it. I stumbled back, uncertainty flooding my senses. Emily! I heard the distant voice again. It's now or never. That's when I realized the boundary had been broken. Now, I had to decide whether to step into the darkness or pull myself back towards the light. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage I had left. The swirling void before me seemed to beckon, a maelstrom of fear and uncertainty, but it also felt like a doorway, a chance to confront what lay behind the whispers. My heart pounded as I grappled with the weight of my decision. I glanced back at the figures that had appeared around me, both familiar and strange, shifting through the remnants of the mirror's shards. Their eyes were filled with a mix of sorrow and longing, calling me with unspoken words. "Don't forget us," they seemed to whisper in unison, urging me towards the darkness. But I also remembered the voice that had called my name, the urgency behind it. "You have to fight." Images of twisted shadows and distant echoes flashed through my mind. They were all trapped, lost within their own destinies. I couldn't let that happen to me. With trembling hands, I lifted the key once more, its metal cool against my palm. I felt the energy pulsing through it, resonating with something deep within me. The symbol on the wall, glowing with intent, pulled my focus back. It was no longer just a mark of the forgotten, it felt like a lifeline. "Emily, your choice," the figure yelled, and I caught a glimpse of desperation in its flickering form. I stepped back from the void, forcing myself to turn away from it. "I want to be lost. I'm not going to disappear into the shadows like the rest of you," I shouted, my voice echoing with newfound resolve. The whispering voices surged, trying to reel me in, but I pressed forward, moving towards the symbol engraved on the wall, pulse racing. I placed the key onto it, slotting it in place, heart hammering as the ancient magic ignited around me. Suddenly, the entire room pulsed with energy. The floor vibrated beneath my feet, and a cacophony of sound erupted. It was both beautiful and terrifying. I felt the darkness surge forward, but I didn't flinch. This was my fight. I had to push through. With a fierce cry, I twisted the key in the symbol, feeling a surge of warmth spread through me, illuminating my surroundings. The shadows reeled back, shrieking in protest as the light spilled across the room, cutting through the darkness. "Emily! Don't stop!" The voice shouted, urging me onward. Roots of fear that had tangled in my mind began to dissolve, replaced with memories that felt true, laughter with friends, moments of joy, the warmth of sunlight breaking through clouds. Everything I had ever experienced rushes back, reclaiming the pieces that had been lost. As the darkness receded, I caught a glimpse of the figures behind me twisting and thrashing as they faded, but their voices softened to a lull, their plight intertwined with mine, but never my sentence. Then, with a final surge, the key clicked fully into place, and the room expanded, radiating with blinding light. The echoes of the whispers grew faint until they were but a whisper of ghosts from a different time. And in a flash, I was engulfed in light. When it faded, I found myself on the attic floor of my home, sunlight streaming through the window. I blinked in confusion, disbelief washing over me. The key lay beside me, its glow dimmed but still warm. I glanced around. It was quiet, too quiet. My heart pounded as I stood, uncertainty wrapping around me once more. Had I truly escaped? Had I faced the past, or merely danced on its edge without ever breaking free? Though I had returned to the surface, the house felt different, emptier, yet somehow freer. Shadows lingered in the corners, but they didn't creep into my thoughts anymore. I moved to the window, peering out into the world beyond, a small town bustling with life. I never felt so aware, so acutely in touch with the light around me. Yet, a flicker of doubt nudged at the back of my mind. The memories of those who had come before me lingered, the whispers reminding me that some questions would never be fully answered. I still didn't know if what I encountered was supernatural or simply the manifestations of my own fears. As I reopened the attic door, I hesitated, glancing back into the depths of the space. A part of me knew the darkness still existed, quiet and waiting. I had escaped, yes, but it would always be there, just beneath the surface. I took a deep breath and stepped into the light of a new day. I moved forward, forever changed, contemplating the mysteries that would continue to haunt me. I had survived, but the journey was far from over. Sometimes, I still think about the voices, and I wonder if they'll ever find peace. I guess I'll never know.